Okay, good morning. Since na ay nag-request para mag-explain ko sa Module 7, here it is. So, this module will be about percentiles and T distribution. Ang percentiles, to cover the meanings is a grade 10. So, all I will do, kaya hindi ako mo expand on sa yung percentiles and sa yung T distributions I can cover na ninyo. But, I will tell you what's the relationship nila to ha. As per the buying an as objective theory. So, first guy, we are going to look at what's in. So percentiles, as I've said before, percentiles have been discussed in your grade 10 and their uses. So, sa kanin na mga percentiles, according sa, if make a quick na on Google, so a percentile is actually a way of, it is where a certain percentage of scores fall below that number. So it's a type of used as in a it's a way of trying to know the distribution sa imong data. Like for example, kung may tag the 25th percentile, meaning if nakay group of data, 25 nakay usa ka number na anything below it kay ni fall sa everything below it kay kanang 25% in comparison sa amount of data. It's not and then usually it's connected to another type of value for central tendency, which is median. So itong median. So makita to ninyo sa previous modules. So let's try to look at this example sa what's in. Using the given data below, hindi mo na siya kabuok. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Find the following percentiles. What we will ganahan mo recall kung saan ang value sa percentile rank ano siya ang formula. You can even look this up sa Google ni Mara kaya po ninyo percentile. Rank is here where n is the number of values below that number and n would be the sample size. So kitahay, if we are to answer this, ang una itong if we want to look at the percentile of a certain group of data, ato sa siya arrange into ascending order. So it's basically, so may gibuhat sa example na rin. As pinaka-first na data would be the pinaka-least among it would be 40. Kaya tapos ang dito sa upper limit would be 90. Okay. So, kani siya, example, ang ipangayon na to kay 10th na percentile. So, the percentile rank would be 10. Equal to the n, and then pinagin na number of samples, we calculated it kanina to be 9, di ba? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 siya. The rest, you solve for n, and makita niyo mga when you solve for n, 10 over 100 by 9. This would be equal to So since there is no, when it comes to looking for the ranks ng numbers 0.9 man siya, it means to say na mo ang number the number of data points below that certain number kay man yung mga ma-reflect. So since wala may 0.9 na it's important na when it comes to percentiles kay mo ni siya i-round down. Kasi pag 0.9 normally round kay di ba is equal to 1. But no, a percentile is that we always round it down. More round the down. So, pag 0.9, this would be just equivalent to 0. So, which one which one among these numbers nga who have a have zero data points below it? The only possible answer would be the pinaka-least, which is 40. And so ang ato ang kanang kuan ni, ang ato ang 10th percentile na ranking would be 40. Let's try to um look for it diri sa kanang kuan sa answer K, and then more gihapon ninyo ang makita sa WhatsApp. 40. So, if you use the same formula again for the other na numbers, you'll find out na maura gihapon ang easy. For example, let's try to look for the 50th percentile using the same formula. So, ganun na siya. So, ito 50th na percentile, di ba? So, the same formula at the example number 6. 50 equal to n, and then n is like 100. Since ns is equal to 9, and kung siya i-arrange siya ng formula, so equal to 50 times 9 over n would be equal to 4.5. So, round. So basically, it would at least the data point na itong ipangita would at least have 4 data points below it. So, asa mo na ni will count up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, si 56 maoy kanang data point na naay 4 data points below it. So, 56 answer. Yan, bato tanawin sa ato ang answer K. Para pala na okay. The next section I will be talking about marketing for what's in. If we hatagan ng o ganang recollection kung unsa ng percentile. What I will be talking about next will be the T distribution or the student's T distribution. So, there's a very lengthy discussion sa what is it section sa page 10. So, if wala mo na dito sa book, you can just read that. Pero, if kailangan mo kanang more na explanation, tanawan one by one. So, T distribution, pareha siya sa katong normal distribution curve. Pareha siya similar but not 100% the same. So, the T distribution is a family of distributions. So, once if you think about it, inani aniyahang form. So, family siya. So, it means to say na panangkuan. It means na the family of distributions or daghan siya na mode na yung mas taas, so on and so forth. So it's a set or it's a group of distributions na identical siya sa katong identical siya sa katong Z na distribution or the normal distribution curve, only a bit shorter and stouter. So the T distribution is used instead of the normal distribution when you have small samples. Normally, what we would consider a small sample would be, small samples would be when the sample size is less than 30. Okay. Anything anything na mas dakuan na, the word normally, but not all the time, we would call it a population. Anything na makanakuan, if sample size is below 30, that's called a small sample. So the larger the sample size, the more the T distribution looks like a normal distribution. Here are all drawings. What that would look like, okay, let's look at this one. Figure nga akong ipakita earlier. Here, frame, I will draw this image right here. This right here. So, kung kung tanawan mo, look at this marker sa katong green na distribution curve. Nakita niyo mga moral siya kanang medyo flat siya, di ba? This because the N is, this happens when ang imuhang sample size is a small na sample size. And the smaller the sample size, whether magagamay pa ang imuhang sample size, it will look flatter than usual, and so on and so forth. Pero, kung imo sa increase ang sample size, so just like this one, if of the T distribution, kung ang N is close to 30, mana siya, anam siya ka peak. Peak siya until the shape kay duol-duol siya sa normal distribution curve, which is the Z distribution. So, marato ang yahang nasabot niya. This is how it is visualized. Kung magkamag ka ng ka, kung imo ni siyang put on the same graph and compare the both graph. The larger, so as explain kanina, the larger sample size, the more the distribution will look like the normal distribution. The distribution, in fact, for sample sizes larger than 20 or naman siya pa sa 30, it will almost look like the normal distribution. So the T distribution is similar but not the same. Okay, similar is not kanang it's not this sabot na completely parehas na. It has a precise mathematical definition. So instead of kanang mag-dive ka sa complex na math, ang ipakita lang niya diri na in bullet points is the characteristics of the T distribution. So, siya. You can even use this figure as a guide. So, first na point, like the normal distribution, the T distribution has a smooth shape. Like the normal distribution, the T distribution is symmetric, or it is a mirrored na image. Dili siya skewed, it is equal on both sides na as symmetrical plane. So, like a standard normal deviation, the T distribution has a mean of 0. So, napakita natin siya here. Both of them have a mean of 0. The normal distribution assumes that the population standard deviation is known. So, mani ang difference, mani ang staggering na difference niya. So, nag-start yung difference, it means na, mani si Z distribution, we can only achieve this if we have the sigma population or the population standard deviation. Normally, if especially when it comes to research studies, hindi na pa-assume or gabi nakabaho ka kung saan siya. That's why most people, especially when it comes to magamit sila mga samples na ginagmay lang, magamit na sila distribution because this is a very difficult thing to find. Involves are really really practical ang pagkuha aning nga value, and sometimes sad ka nang erroneous na pagkuha aning nga value. So, most people, if dili ni siya known, if unknown ni siya, mo siya ang gamiton. T distribution. So, the T distribution instead is defined by the degrees of freedom. These are related to the sample size. For example, di ba, we have the N, di ba? The degrees of freedom is really just related to the sample size through this formula. Sorry. Df F is equal to N minus 1. And this is what we use sa ato ang T distribution table. Kung ang Z table kay we are only being asked to we are asked to look for the area under a curve, which is mao na siya ang nasod sa under ani nga mga areas. Sa ato in order to look for the T value, kailangan define ang ato ang degrees of freedom. So the degrees of freedom is just the sample size minus 1. And then we also have to define the sample or the error nato, or the what we call the setting sa ato ang test, which is this one. Which is kaning alpha is actually quite connected sa ato ang chikahan na topic earlier with the percentile. You already know this. Okay. So ano siya? This is probably the one of the uses sa kanang distribution is that it's useful for small sample sizes, especially useful when the population standard deviation is not known. So, uh, so kita hay kani. Ano tayo degrees of freedom, no? So, how are they related exactly? Ang percentile niya ang kanang kuan, ang t-distribution. Well, for starters, ang kanang kuan, ang percentile is kaning mga ingani bitaw ng 0.40, the right-tailed area. So it pertains to this area right here, or the tolerance sa imuhang kanang kuan, the tolerance sa imuhang test. So kita if na diri if kanang ang kanang given ani if kanang sa katong z table nangita ta sa area aning sa t table given ani siya. Given siya nga kanang kuan. So let's say for example na at kaning and these are related because let's say ang 40 0.40, this is actually the tolerance or the kanang ang pagsabot ani is that sa right tailed area 40% of the data points kinaa diri dapita. Okay, this is our tolerance for error. This is kanang we are kanang saying this kanang equivalent to sa pagsay nga ang iyahang opposite niya would be 60%. Since mao ni alpha mo ito ang error ay i-set na to nila nga tolerance nga if it is equal to 40 then of course by 0.4 man na so 40 ang kanang nasa under ani sa katong wala i-shade area would be 60%. So 60% of the data points kay nasod ari dapita. Ako siya mo tangat og after this curve so 60%. And that is true for other na mga values of alpha. Like let's say if we have a at that we are trying to look for the kanang kuan niya ang iyahang t value niya at a 95% na confidence level. So ang 95% nga katong when we talk about kanang confidence level ganito unsa ganito siya. So it is a statistic kanang kuan na or the chance that 95% of your data will fall under that curve. So since we're talking about chances, same when gihapon ni siya sa kanang kuan ang 95% is actually the percentile. So we're also saying na if 95% of the data mo fall under kintahay at under this kanang value. So this is basically the 95th percentile as well, di ba? So at 95% nga mo ni ang value, ano si value nga 95% sa data kay naa diri data. And kaning aning the rest this would be the alpha. This is the error or the kanang the rest the kanang the salit. So mo rin pasabot sa right tail na data alpha. How will this kanang so sa natin siya pagkuan? Let's try to look at one problem solving sa next na kuan next na page. Just na. So let's look at this illustrative na example. Actually, natin siya yung solution na pero let's just do it anyway. So we are asked a first question to identify the t value whose number of samples is n is equal to 7 and it has an area equal to ang area sa iyahang tolerance equal to 0.05. So let's do the step 1. Okay. Step 1, given. Right, so I'm given. N is equal to 7, and then the tolerance or the alpha will be equal to 0.05. Next, we are asked for connect. It's the t value. So we use the t-distribution table. Tama na siya. Second step, we look for the degrees of freedom. So df is really just equal to n minus 1. So unsa nang n gani? 7, 1, df. So df is equal to 6. Yeah, since na naman, given naman tag df, given naman sa tag tolerance is equal to 0.05, all we need to do is run this, step 3, sa T distribution table. Nga man nag-ibuhat sa example. Okay. Nasa 0.5, napagsis ka na ang degrees of freedom. So the answer, atong T value na nakuha would be 1.943, rather. So, mana siya. Kuha na nato si number 1. Tada! Try to answer or aka ng answer for number 2. Find the p-value whose degree of freedom is 20 and has an alpha of 0.01. Do we need to do any other steps? Kuha naman, we already have everything we need to look for the p-value. So we're asking for the p-value. No, diba? The solution would be we're just katulad ng tanawon dito sa kuan table, since given naman tag degrees of freedom and then a right tailed area. So, ano siya? Manibuhat sa sa solution, and then given na po tag degrees of freedom, the answer would be ang p-value natin we look up to be equal to 2.528. Okay, next example. We will identify the p-value of the following percentiles given the number of samples. So, number 3. So, mana itong given? Put another. Very happen na po. 95th percentile. And then, the n or the sample size would be equal to 30. So, like I said, ang percentile, and the as na gyapon, it would be equal to t for the t-value. So, solution ani, ato na siyang i-convert ng kaning this one and this one into the alpha, in terms of the alpha, and this one in terms of the df. So, the relationship sa percentile ni alpha. So, the alpha, ang katong error na to is really just equal to 100 minus the t, or the percentile. In this case, the alpha is in percentage, percentage. So, if the alpha, if the percentile to 95, 95 percentile, 100 minus 25%. The alpha would be equal to 5%, or ato na i-decimal 0.05. And then kaning n would be equal to 30. Pero how do we unsa kaning relationship sa degrees of freedom nga n? The degrees of freedom is really just n minus 1. Given naman sa n, the df, ignore na siya. Substitute 30 minus 1, df is equal to 59. Now that we have the alpha and the degrees of freedom, we are now ready to run it through the distribution table. So, here. So, as you can see, ang gibuhat solution, i-run through the values of 0.05 and also at a degrees of freedom of 29. You're able to look for a p-value of 1.699. And that includes answer. Yeah, kanin B. Let's answer this similarly if you happen. So, ganito i-ask sa B ganito. So, right, first step, write down the given 90th percentile. So, P is equal to 90. And then, sample size P equal to 20. First, sa kanakuan, we are asked, kanina po, the p-value. P-value. Manila. Solution would be first, E. Ito. Kasi ito ba na ito dire? Ato rin siyang E. Unsa man express in the table in terms of alpha, di ba? So, let's say alpha. This one, we look for the degrees of freedom. So that's a p-value. And how are we going to do that? We use the relationship sa alpha and the percentile, which would be equal to 100 minus p. Minus siya, minus 90. So, 100 minus 90. The alpha would be 10%, or in decimal terms, 0.1. Now, looking for the degrees of freedom, the degrees of freedom is really just n minus 1. Df is equal to 20 minus 1. Ito rin yung tatawan sa ito ang chart para pag-ibuhat niya. So alpha, we have it here, and also the kuan at the degree of freedom na 90. Ang ato ang nakuha nato natin value will be 1.328. Nari po kuan I noticed an error sa kanang sa module kay nawa ni siya. You want the right-tailed area to actually be 0.1, not 0. It's not 0.1, 0.01. Ay, kuan. 10% is kanang kuan kung ato na siyang i-move two decimal places to the left is equal to 0.1. And then we move it across the row and find the column for kanisad 0. It's also it's also move across the row, find the column for 0.1. So I siya 0.1. And that includes ako ang sample na problem. Nga, kaning sa what's more money ang inyong buhaton. Okay, so complete the table below by identifying the degree of freedom, right-tailed area, and the p-value for each percentile in the sample size. Okay, to look for the one. Kasi kami, I'll try to look for number 1 kita. So try to look at answer. So, wala na yung solution na mag-guide na to. So it's really just us. Gosh. Okay. First step, identify the given. Given na to would be the 60th for the percentile rank. So 60th percentile siya. And also the sample size. And is equal to 2. What is asked kani? They're asked to look for the DF, the right-tailed area, and you're also asked for the p-value. Okay. Let's call this A, let's call this B, let's call this C. DF, and then the solution will be like this. First, we look for the DF. So DF is like balik na 3 or 4 times 29 is equal to n minus 1. So, given na to ang 2, the degree of freedom would be equal to 1 now. The right-tailed area. So, the right-tailed area is katong error, di ba? Or the kanapan. This is the definition of the right-tailed area, or the alpha. So let's see one. The right-tailed area, or alpha. As usual, we use for the kanapan the formula for the alpha equal to 100 minus percent. That. So, itong p kanina to, it's at 60. So we substitute 60 for p. Alpha would be equal to 40% or 0.4. Now that we have both our alpha and our NDF, ito rin siyang tanawang sa t-distribution table to look for the T. So TF, as in 1 again. 1. So 1, and at an alpha of 0.4, the right-tailed area would be equal to 0. And the P value would be equal to 0.325. And now it's your turn to answer the rest of the problems. By the way, it's also fitting if to answer money by a 31. Nice siya kayo kaya writing. And that will be all for module 7.